First, we're going to repurpose a 1-gallon glass pickle jar. So that's kind of free, right? And then we have some decorative nautical rope, a couple packages that I picked up at the dollar store. So that's just a couple dollars worth of rope. That is our main supplies that we're going to use. So I'm just going to kind of show you how I put this one together. I'm measuring out vertical strips. I'm going to end up cutting 8 of these. They're going to be 11 inches long. Now, once I get all of my strips cut to the 11 inches, I'm going to start using my glue gun to attach them on the side of the jar. Now, this jar in particular, I want to point out, you can usually see on any glass jar, there's a seam. And I'm going to start with that seam, just so I know that I have a line to go, and it will help my eye as I'm laying out and trying to keep everything very even looking. So I'm going to take I'll try this a couple different ways. I did the long run of glue and glued it on. And then when I show you of the next one that I'm going to glue on, you're going to see I kind of went at it a little differently. Sometimes whenever you're working on these projects, you kind of get a feel for what works best. And sometimes that hot glue can start to set up on you quicker than you'd like. So, give it a try and see what works best for you. For this second time, now I'm going on the very opposite side where the other seam is. And I'm going to just put a little glue at the top and then work my way down in sections of hot glue. And I really liked this approach much better. And so I did that for all the rest of the strips by the time I got all the 8 strips on. And all I'm doing is I'm evenly spacing these out. So you see these two are opposite from one another. And then I'll go in the middle of those sections and put a piece of rope. And then I'll do that, continue on until all 8 are glued on. And then at the bottom, if any of your rope is fraying or anything, you can go ahead and get that glued down. If you'll notice the little pink things I have on my fingers, if you've never seen those before, they're just silicone finger protectors, and they're really great for when you're trying to work really closely with hot glue. It can save your fingers some little burns there. And while I'm saying that, I'm going to go ahead and say that this particular craft was actually inspired by a fellow home talker, Hinda Afudaman, who did use yarn to lay out the design on her pickle jar. And so I want to give a little shout out to her. And like anybody can see an idea and put your own spin on it. And I hope that y'all are feeling inspired by this one so far. So let's keep creating. We've got all of our 8 strips put on here. And we're going to move on and we're going to measure around the jar. We're going to need 2 long strips there. And those ended up being 22 inches long. So I have 2 of those. Again, you have the ability to kind of create whatever you like design-wise. I decided to keep it even more simple and just do 1 on the top and then glue 1 around the bottom. And then for the last step, just to give it a finished look, I'm opting to cut 3 15-inch strips to give a finished look to the rim of the jar. And I think it looks nice, and I'm just going to start somewhere and kind of glue in a few places as I'm wrapping around. And then I'll glue the other 2 and it ended up being a stack of 3. And so there it is, kind of finished. I'm putting the finishing touches on it. Now at this point, there's also another option. You could add like a handle or something like that. I decided to keep it pretty simple. I'm going to show you kind of how I styled it too. So I have a wooden little charger, a cute little vintage jar, and a pretty little bright blue pop of floral. I put in some sand from the dollar store and a flameless LED candle. And then I grabbed a few seashells and driftwood pieces from our trips to the beach and cute little sign, and I think it's all sweet. So because this jar is so neutral, it would look good staged and styled for many different seasons. I hope you enjoyed seeing this one come together, as I always enjoy showing you. Again, I'm Summer with HammondsNest.com. Thanks for watching me on Home Talk.
Today we're going to be doing some recycling. I took some glass jars out of our recycling bin and we're going to be turning them into the cutest storage containers you have ever seen. And we're back in our kitchen at the sink because we're soaking some jars. The last time I did this, we were doing faux sea glass, and people see the labels are just coming right off. People were wondering why I was doing all this soaking when I could use something like Undo or Goo Gone. I like to soak first. First of all, with this batch of jars, we're going to be actually putting snacks in them. So obviously I want them to be genuinely clean. But also I don't love to use a ton of chemicals if I don't have to, especially when I'm working in bulk and I've got probably a dozen jars in here. but these have only been soaking for a few minutes, and you can see these labels are coming right off. But I'm going to let these keep soaking because I do want to talk about using Undo on the actual jar lids, because these we can start working on right away because we're going to punch holes in them because we're going to be putting these cute little knobs on. So for those of you, these I actually ran through the dishwasher because they didn't have extra labels and stuff on them, but some do have this little bit of sticky. So Undo is something you can buy online. We've got the link in the materials section, and there's also Goo Gone. There's a bunch of options for you, and all I'm doing is squeezing it out, and you can sort of see how it starts to come right off. The Undo's got a little scraper at the end, but I also will take a white rag. I don't like to use a paper towel because it's sort of fibery, but see how quickly that comes off. And then I can just dunk it back in the sink for a quick rinse, or I can wipe it right off. I'm going to do that for the rest of these, and then we're going to go outside and drill some holes. And we're outside because we're going to be using power tools and we're going to be spray painting. And there's a couple things we need to do before we can move on to the spray painting part. I bought these really beautiful knobs online, and so we're going to put those in the lids. So the first thing we need to do is drill holes in the lids, and then we're actually going to cut down the ends of these knobs because these are made for cabinets and we just need them for this little lid. So that's the second thing we're going to do. Then we're going to start spray painting. But the first thing we're going to do is go to our lids and just measure from the center. A couple of these, like this one's pretty easy. I mean, it almost has a X marks the spot in the center because the lid has different rings in the middle, but you measure the center and mark a little spot, and then you just go the other side, measure a spot. And here's the thing about this project in particular, actually off by a little bit. No one's going to be measuring this and saying, you know what, she's off by 1/32 of an inch. No, my friends, we're not doing that. People are just going to be excited to get it. Another question I think folks are going to have, it doesn't matter if there's writing and such on the lid, because we are painting these. You can go ahead and use whatever lids you've got. You can also use mason jar lids. You'd still want to drill a hole in the middle of those, but these are, you know, mostly flat, and then you put the ring on top. This is an actual jar lid. You can use whatever you find at home. So we're going to take our drill. I'm going to hold on to the jar. I've got a piece of scrap wood underneath. You're going to want to go slow to start to give the drill a chance to catch. Go down. There's a giant fly out here. Gotta love live. There we go. And we're out. So I'm just gonna, there we go. Do this for all of the other lids, and then we'll be ready to cut our knobs. Okay, now we're ready to keep it sexy with the safety glasses because we're going to be using our Dremel that has the cutoff wheel at the end. I've got it plugged in. I'm ready to use it. This is going to shoot off some sparks, and also we're working with metal, hence the safety glasses. But I need to cut down the ends of these knobs. So here's what we discovered. The screw that comes on each of these knobs, if you put a second one on there, I just borrowed one from another one, that's about the thickness that we want these to be. So I'm just borrowing, screwing and unscrewing, and that's going to give me the distance I want. If you're using thicker jars or different kind of screws, you may have to figure out something else. But this is a good length for us, and now we're ready to go. Okay, so we got our first one done. I'm going to set this aside, and then we're going to work on the rest, and then we'll be ready to paint. Okay, now for the last step before we can actually put these cute jars together, we're spray painting. We're spray painting the lids. You can do them all one color. I'm going to mix and match because I really like all the variety of colors that are in the little knobs. And if you are going to mix and match, this is a great way to use up the little leftover bits of spray paint you've got. There's very little paint left in here, but I feel like I can paint a couple lids with it. So I've got my paint triangles out, I've got my spray trigger out. If you're going to be working with mason lid jars, I'm using that same scrap of wood that we had before and just resting that on top so I can get good coverage. All right, let's spray some things. I'm gonna spray these green ones, let it dry, paint the other colors, and then I'll meet you back inside and we'll put these babies together. Okay, and now for the fun part, we're putting these babies back together. So you wanna make sure to match the lids with the jars they go with before you start putting the knobs on. And the reason I did that is because some of them have blue, some of them have green, so I wanted to make sure I sort of mixed and matched and found what I like. Every knob's gonna be different depending on the kind of knob that you get. Let me move these around here. But these have obviously the screw, or sorry, the nut. So I need to take that back off. These also have washers, so I'm taking the washer off. And then this, I have no idea what the technical term is for this, but I left this on, but you could take it off if you wanted just maybe a little less surface, but I'm leaving that on. I'm taking my lid and I'm gonna go ahead and insert this through the top. And you may have to give it a little bit of a push, and you're gonna hold it flush to there. Get this jar out of the way so I can see. Hold it flush, put the washer back on, and put the nut back on. A couple tips as I sort of worked on this. Because I am putting food in here, obviously I didn't want to get any paint on the bottom. If you do get some paint on the bottom or you're worried about putting food in these, you could do some sort of coating. We actually left these outside last night and they got a little bit wet and the paint was just fine, so we were okay with that. So once you've got that, then you can go ahead and fill it. What I really think is cool, I'm gonna fill this one with snacks, but look at how I filled these with toiletry, like cotton balls and Q-tips. So they would be beautiful in your bathroom, or maybe if you wanna store, I know, something like buttons in your craft room, you can use them. I'm gonna use them as neighbor gifts. So I filled them with different goodies and stuff. So you just take it, fill your jar. Because remember, we wash these, so you can use them for food. It's super easy. It's a great way to, as I dump mango bits everywhere. Great way to, good lordy Lou, upcycle your jars. I mean, how cute is this gonna be as a gift to one of my neighbors? I'll eat this little piece right here. So this is how we recycle our jars. Look at how cute they turn out. The knobs are available online, but you can also find them at maybe thrift stores or Goodwill. So this is what we're doing with our recycled jars, my friends. Thanks so much for watching. It's Beth from the Kingston Home signing off from Hometalk. See you next time.